I think I'll have to give him the uh,
Sonia, you can
I'm
change the settings.
yeah
I'm here,
settings,
Debbie.
and he needs to be he
Can
need
you
to
hear me?
present, right? He wants to present something.
Yeah.
There's a presentation to make. Yeah, Johan. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
great.
Can you
So
enable?
yeah, Johan, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to see you. Before I start, I must tell you, I see so many familiar faces on the call, and I'm grateful for all of you to join in. Johan, today is Teachers' Day in India. Okay, so this day
Ah,
is dedicated to the teachers. Okay,
okay.
and it is commemorating our first president, and then all the teachers we bow before and acknowledge their contribution. So it's a lovely day for you to be playing that role for a while. So
Thank you.
yeah, okay, and also I must mention, Subhas, with your permission and with other participant permission, I must mention two people who have been my mentors are on the call. So both of them happen to be Agrawals, and one is Professor Narendra Agrawal. He is on the call from IIM Bangalore. He was a professor of HR in Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. Very senior person, academician, and very well respected in India. The other person again is Dr. Arvind Agrawal. So he is also doctorate, and um, he has been my boss, mentor, and both of them continue to mentor me today also. So it's a great opportunity to acknowledge both of you being here and introduce you to the panel, to the participants. Right. Thank you for being there, both of you. Johan, so I just like to introduce you to everyone, and Johan is my. We have worked together, and we have worked together for many years in Atos, and I still remember when I used to go to Paris, Johan used to take me to Saint Elysees and treated me with which Italian pizza, Johan, that was.
Pizza Pino.
Pizza, pizza Pino, right? So the Italian pizza. I still remember our chatting around what is happening in Atos and those days. So Johan was a global CHRO for a company called Steria, and which is a large European multinational IT company. That is where he was the CHRO. Before that, he was with Atos for many years, as senior vice president HR, leading the corporate initiatives. And before that, he was in HR and business, and he was with Nissan Motors, so in Europe. So in automobiles for 15 years. So he has a plethora of experience, hugely experienced. And Johan has done his EMCC, Senior Practitioner Credentials. He also has a master's from in executive coaching from Ashridge Business School, UK, and he has done his human resource management from Hertfordshire, right? I'm pronouncing it right, Johan.
It's fine. It's fine.
That's the master degree he has done. He's a Hogan certified person, and currently he's doing his coach supervision under MCC. So he's almost about to complete that. So while discussing with him, and I kind of said, why don't you come and speak to our Regal coaches? And that's how it all started up. And he agreed to talk to us and attend one of the MuseArt. And while talking about what could be a good topic, relevant topic for all of us, we were discussing, and he came up saying that during his coach supervisor training, he was very amazed to see that how coaches carry their own belief and kind of sometimes get indulged into the pattern so much that also while recognizing patterns of the coachee or the client, they are entangled into their own patterns, right? And so that was very interesting, and I thought that was a good area that he could speak to us, and he agreed. So Johan, over to you. And this is very interesting topic, and I being a practicing coach, I can relate to it. And so many times we get hooked onto our own beliefs, thoughts, and when we are listening to the client, yeah, during our coaching session. So, what are those key patterns that you'd like to talk about? And to the participants, Johan wants to make it a little more interactive. So after each of the pattern that he talks about, he would invite us, some of us, to participate and ask questions and share our own experience, what's coming for us. So let's make it a little more interactive. Yeah, over to you, Johan.
Okay. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you for your kind introduction. Thank you for inviting me to this to your group. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, great. Then I see I'm now able to share my presentation. I made a few slides. I'm going to try and do that. Can you see this? Is it coming across?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, great. So thank you very much. Yeah, special day, day of the teacher. I wasn't aware, to be honest. I'm sorry. So rather than being a teacher, I think what I would like to do is to create a space for us to perhaps reflect a bit together and inspire you. And perhaps I think for many of you, just refresh your thinking about these patterns. Actually, I came up with this idea because earlier this year we published an article together with a supervisor, a friend of mine, Marianne Euse. It was published in some coaching magazine, and in there we shared some of our thinking about these patterns. Today, I would like to talk about these three patterns. So transference, parallel processes, and projective identification. I assume, I'm sure that considering the seniority of your group, for most of you, this is something that you already know, but perhaps, you know, as we go along, it's a nice opportunity to do some refreshed thinking and some reflection. As Debbie said, I suggest to do that in a way that I will introduce it shortly, and then perhaps we can have a discussion together before we go to the next one. My understanding is we have about 45 minutes, and I'll try to keep it in time because I understand it's already late for you. So why is this important? It's important because as we are aware of these processes, better aware of these processes, we can tailor actually the approach in our coaching conversation. And for many of these patterns, it can actually help the coachee in a tremendous way in getting a better insight into the way they behave, and not only to you, but also in their environment. So it's important to support our own ongoing professionalization and development, but it's also important to help our clients. So let me start with transference. I don't know, but maybe many of you know the story, because transference was actually discovered by a guy called Sigmund Freud. I think you all know him. Sigmund Freud and his colleague Joseph Breuer. They had a patient. It's a very famous patient. If you like to read about it, you know, go on the internet and you will find many stories about Anna. We don't know her surname. She's called O, Anna O. What happened in this case was that Anna O was a patient to Joseph Breuer. This is 1912. She was a patient to Joseph Breuer. And as Breuer and Freud were reflecting on the relationship between Anna and the development of the relationship between Anna and Joseph, they found out that Anna was gradually considering Joseph as her loving father. So she was projecting, in a way, transferring her feelings for her father onto Joseph Breuer. And as Freud and Breuer discovered this, Freud saw that this more often happens with his patients. And he wrote, it is called repetition compulsion. This happens often unconscious. And as you know, the law of unconscious is what is repressed seeks expression. So let me show you a definition of what transference actually is. I'm not saying this is the definition. There may be others as well, but this is the definition that we like to use. Transference is the displacement of feelings, thoughts, and behavior originally experienced in a relation to significant figures early in life onto a person involved in a current interpersonal relationship. So that's what transference is. When coachees experience transferential feelings, he or she is likely to behave in a way that they invite you to be complementary and give a complementary response. So what I mean to say is that Joseph Breuer, in his response to Anna, started to behave as if he was a loving father, as if he cared for Anna. And this is quite normal. It happens more often. Mm-hmm. If I quote an example from my own experience, then I like to go back to Mariana. She was a coachee of mine. And actually what happened was that she was very, very positive about our coaching relationship. Very soon, from maybe after 1 or 2 sessions, she thought, you know, we were having wonderful conversations. And she was so positive and so, in a way, idolizing me as a good coach, having understanding her very well, having providing her deep insights, that I started to think, well, you know, is this really true? And I asked the question, what does our coaching conversations remind you of? And then she said, and it was surprising to hear, of her uncle. And as we went deeper into that conversation, I noticed that what she said is that I had some similar looks as her uncle. And secondly, he had lived with her family, with her in the house. And he was always such a good advisor to her. So what happened was that she was mixing up the relation that she apparently had with her uncle and the relationship with me. When we started to go deeper into that conversation, we could disentangle it, and we could make a difference between what was happening in our coaching relation and the relation with her uncle, because it isn't the same, of course. And this was really helpful for her, because she noticed that she had different transferential moments with other people from other experiences. So it helped her to understand and to see what in these conversations is happening. For us as coaches, what is important is that we are and remain conscious about the responses that we have to our clients, and of course also from clients, the responses are important towards us. And helpful questions that I find in the coaching conversation is things like, what feelings and images do I have in response to this client? What sort of metaphor would I use to describe him or her? Or what has most impact on me as I listen to this coachee? What is actually happening as I sit here and listen to what the other person is telling me. With this introduction, I actually wanted to sort of start some reflections for about 10 minutes or so, and ask, to you to share your thoughts, or maybe any questions you may have. And it's not only me who can respond, but also others. Please be welcome. And if I would like to help you with a particular question, I would say, what do you notice as you think about this specific client that you have? What reactions do you have to your client's appearance? I'm thinking about similarities that Mariana was telling me about. How do you imagine that the client sees you? I think it's also an important and interesting question. How does what does this client remind you of?
Very interesting,
the floor.
Johan. Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that. I think it was very interesting, and I would now put it to the participants. I think they can unmute and ask questions, or they can put it onto the chat box, and so that we can take it up. I just see Arvind writing something very interesting set of questions. I have never looked at this perspective. Yeah, I agree, Arvind. I think it's really interesting coming from you. Yeah. Any questions? Anything, Subhash? Anyone would like to go for and ask a question, or any reflections that is coming that you would like to share to the group or ask Johan?
My thoughts are that in corporate coaching context, you're often invited because somebody in the organization is concerned about improving the performance of that particular individual in context of that organization. And for you to define the agenda for the change, you of course talk to the coachee, but you also talk to the reference group of that particular person to understand what is that which need to change, which will improve his performance vis-a-vis the other members of one's role set. And once you have done this task pretty well, I think you have a very defined agenda for the change to work along with your coachee. And if we do that, I think that there is a less possibility of a transference. When you're focusing only on the person, and the person is the sole source of data for you to define the agenda for the change, there is a greater possibility of transference.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Seriously. Yeah, Johan, you want to respond?
No, thanks. I think that is a good remark. My intention is to go through these three basic patterns, and then we will come to a slide that I made that I think links very much to what you just brought, and because there is the way that we are developing the coaching relationship that has an impact on whether these let's say past transferential patterns actually play a role or not.
Yeah, sure. Johan, I think, that was Professor Narendra Agrawal. So it'll be interesting to come back to that same conversation at the end of the session.
Yeah.
The other question is, Nikshep, is there a specific timeline in the coaching journey that this behavior is seen? Also, are there some of the common triggers that the coach needs to watch out for, so that they are mindful of this not happening? I mean, for example, with Mariana, when did you discover that, and what triggered your thought?
Yeah, what triggered my thought in this particular case was that I felt that there was something not right. I'm really not that good. Yes, I work with people, and over time you will have a certain respect, and there will be things that you know very well. But when a coaching client is overly enthusiastic about me in a way that doesn't fit with my own understanding, that already made me trigger, like, what's going on here? This is not what I'm used to, let me put it that way. And that brought me to that question, and to a certain extent, I think, to answer the person asking the question, I think that very often times this happens very subtly, and maybe we don't notice. Maybe we don't notice. If it is very subtle, you won't notice. But if this is, let's say, making you aware that there is something that is not normal, then it triggers you to maybe ask questions.
Yeah, very interesting. But does that derail the coaching? I mean, in the sense, if somebody really feels great or positive about the coach, does that derail the process of coaching?
Not always, not always. I think it can be, if it is fair and correct, it's great, I would say. If there is a good fit and a good coaching relationship, that's fine. If there is a mutual respect, that's absolutely great.
And the question here, is it similar to the process of mirroring that's done in NLP?
That I'm not sure.
Okay. Maybe there are some experts in NLP here itself. Among the participants can respond to it.
Yeah.
Maybe someone can answer to Bidhu in the chat box itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is any other question, any other viewpoint which is coming?
There is one more.
Wants to?
I see a hand.
Yeah.
From Bindu.
There is one more from, So there is a question, will it create performance pressures from Karan? Then over to you, Bindu, after that. So Johan, you want to take that? Will it create
will it
performance
create
pressures?
performance? It can. And at least it can help the coachee, as it will also, when we go further into the other patterns, it will help the coachee to be aware that they sometimes fall into these patterns. And if they are aware, it can substantially help them to become more effective. And in that way also be good for their performance. Yes.
Yeah, this could lead to a expectation mismatch at some point of time, right? And possible.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
So what I liked, Johan, is I want to reiterate, this tendency or the trigger need not derail the conversation or the engagement. We can still retrieve it. It's a very powerful point. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And performance pressure can come, but it can come and go. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yes, I agree. Okay. Bindu, do you want to ask a question or share your observation?
Thank you so much, Johan. I just wanted to understand, with the great deal of clarity that is available in the coaching mindset that is required in a coach, what is the significance of this process of transference in the relationship? Because, as a coach who is supposed to be present for the client or for the coachee, as a pure coaching, as a presence, as to be there for the coachee in a non-judgmental space. It's like somebody else pointed out, do we even go there? Do we go there to see what reaction do I have to my client's appearance? I believe the second question would possibly reflect in the I would want my client to perceive me as I'm there for you and I'm attending to you the whole time. I'm here for you. But the other two, I mean, I don't know. What is your understanding of the significance of this process as a coach who is present, totally there for the client? Because anything that comes up as an observation, or like you said, you felt uncomfortable in the relationship, in your case, which you pointed out. But there is a clear framework that says that, you can always align, share observation and align expectations, correct?
Yes.
So with that clearly lined out, I just wanted to, where does this figure significantly into the coaching process?
Yeah. So, Bindu, I think that whenever, and the other patterns will also lead to that. Whenever we are, let's say, able to help create awareness with a coachee that these kind of patterns may be playing a role, we can help the coachee to improve their either communication or the way they present themselves, also emotionally, can help them to grow and develop. And in that sense, I think it is always important to, as we are sitting there in the coaching conversation, to use, let's say, our own feelings and awareness in support of the coachee. Is that answering your question? Yeah. I think, Debbie, it's time that we move on.
Yeah, do go ahead, please.
So I'd like to go to the next one if I can, which is not working at them up.
Yeah.
And then you go too fast, and now we're back. All right. So the next one I'd like to introduce is what is called the parallel process. And a parallel process is slightly different, but it is something that I think we all come across. There are people who say that, many of the things that we are doing is related to parallel processes. Parallel process was for the first time discovered by Harold Searles in 1955. He's also a psychoanalyst. And he made clear that we transfer feelings from one area or one relation into another area or into another relation. So, for example, if you have a manager, a coachee has a manager that avoids difficult conversations, or that expects the coachee to always come up with a solution, or shows passive-aggressive behavior. Whenever we have a coaching conversation with this individual and we try to go a bit deeper into what is occurring in daily life of this person, and they become open and honest to us, it isn't strange that similar behavior will reappear in the coaching conversation. And when we as coaches, and I will give you an example in a minute of my own experience, when we as coaches go to supervision, it isn't strange that we then parallel into the supervision discussion. Parallel process refers to a dynamic or a pattern or an interaction occurring in one relationship or context, mirrored into another relationship or context. Parallel processes can manifest in various ways, including emotional experience, communication patterns, or behavioral patterns. Wilmot wrote about this, and he says, actually, a parallel process has two main functions. He says the first one is to discharge, where he says the coachee actually discharges their own feeling and make us as coaches, try to make us as coaches feel how it is to be in the situation that they are in. And the second function that he is summing up is solving problems by restructuring a similar situation. So where the coachee is in a situation where the manager, with a manager that is difficult, what they try to do is to recreate that similar situation in the coaching conversation in order to see how the coach is responding to that and maybe learn from the coach's response. I was coaching Jacob, and Jacob had a CEO, and he had a wonderful relationship with that CEO. Unfortunately, the CEO all of a sudden left the organization and he got a new one. And the relationship with that CEO right from the start wasn't very good. So he had difficulties. And where you see this more often happening, the CEO was very demanding to him, asked him to come up with solutions. He wasn't impressed with his performance, so he made his life quite difficult. And what happened in the coaching conversation with me was that Jacob, after a while, became very demanding to me. And I must admit that I didn't notice it so well. It went gradually, and I didn't notice it myself. But when I was in supervision, I had a conversation with about this coachee with my supervisor, because I didn't feel we were making a lot of progress. And I brought this to the supervisor. The supervisor saw that him being demanding on me, that I became demanding on the supervisor. So he saw, hang on a minute, there is something that is repeated from, let's say, the coach and the CEO towards, sorry, the coachee and the CEO to the coach, and the coachee to the supervisor and the coach. So here you see that patterns repeat. And as I said, there are people who proclaim that this is happening much more often than we really think. So we humans bring, and it happens unconsciously, we bring experiences from one relationship into another relationship, and we then manifest, or we use similar emotional experience or behavior in that context. How do we navigate these parallel processes effectively? Now, the first actually is, it's based on reflection. So take time to reflect on our own reactions and emotions in the coaching conversation. How might I be, why may I be feeling a certain way, and how is it relating to the client's situation? And then we can make a choice, either to address it or to adopt. In case it's happening early on in the coaching conversation, maybe it's not yet the right time, or there are other reasons why it's not the right time to address this. So then you park it for a moment and maybe come back to that when the right time is there. When it is appropriate, then you can bring it up in the client conversation in a non-judgmental way and say things like, I experienced the way you are telling me about your manager as quite withholding, and notice that I'm feeling angry or emotional or whatever. And I wonder how you feel when you are working with this manager. So you bring it back to the client conversation. In doing this is often creating awareness with the client. And as with Jacob, it was very helpful. Just the awareness was enough. He became aware that, you know, what was happening in one relationship, he brought to another. And we could also cascaded it back in that way. And that was actually very helpful. So far, my introduction. Let's reflect on this a bit together. Please share your thoughts. Do you recognize parallel processes in your practice? how do you go about them?
Hey, Johan, there are a couple of observations and questions in the chat box.
Okay.
So Mahesh is asking, is it similar to visualization technique?
Not that I think of. No. I don't know. I don't see that. Visualization technique for me is different. You know, you try to visualize a situation.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. I think we can take that up a little later, because I think it's not the same. So yeah. The other one is Vidhu saying, I have experienced a situations, a parallel process in last few weeks with the coachee.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Continuously sought advice and was unwilling.
Continually seeking advice. That is very common.
Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate a bit on this, Vidhu?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So yeah, that was really interesting, because what happened was he kept on insisting that he would like to have the advice. And I had already communicated to him that in coaching, we work on a collaborative way to find out a solution where he does the thinking. And I'm not going to, give advices, but I can definitely share stories which might be parallel that will help him to think differently, right?
Yeah.
And he kept on insisting, I need your inputs, I need your insights. And what I started doing was I started going in terms of his relationship that he was having with his managers. How did he work with his managers or with his team members? And I started discovering that his manager was quite demanding. So his manager kept on, asking him about things, that what can be done over here. You need to come up and you need to tell me over here. And he said, Vidhu, this is what I expect from you also. You need to give me suggestions out here. And I went further depth into it. And, by giving some leeway of some element of, maybe think over here, maybe think over there, a little bit of a guidance approach, he started figuring it out that he can find his own solution. So we had a major breakthrough with respect to one of his professional relationships. And from there, he turned around and he said that, yes, I can do it on my own. And now after, I would say like 3 to 4 months of coaching, I got a feedback from his team, rather his manager, that yes, they are seeing a stark difference in him. And he's taking a little bit more ownership and accountability of the situation and coming up with solutions by himself rather than looking here and there for advice. So I didn't knew it was called as a parallel process, but it definitely worked out.
Yeah. And did you feel that creating that awareness and discussing about this already gave you the opportunity to make a step together with this person?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
I said the fact that you became aware that he was demanding to you and his manager was demanding to him, that the awareness of both relationships, that was, if you create that and you can discuss it and you can be open and honest about it, that already is very helpful to create a kind of breakthrough.
That was helpful because I was specifically working on stakeholder management, with him. And it kind of helped me to understand, what he was going through. So that realization sank in and I started exploring other experiences with his peers. And what I realized was there was something going on as a tension with one of his stakeholder that he has been working. And we started working on that and we resolved that particular situation. And that started turning around his behavior over a period of time. And he became more proactive and, more workable in nature. But yes, you're right. That awareness actually helped me to explore further more in terms of relationships with him.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah. Any other comments, anything from any other participants?
Then we move on.
To the last one, yeah.
Considering the time,
I think
yeah.
just about 20 minutes.
Just to say that you know, of these three, I think parallel process. If you look at it next time you sit with your coachees in your daily practice, maybe parallel process is the most important one. Is the one that appears most often.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Even we
So
we
let's-
have experiences quite often during the corporate leadership stint, right? I mean, this happens quite often.
Yeah, yeah. So it's and it's also it sometimes happens to us. It happens to ourselves. We may
Yeah.
sometimes wonder, so why am I behaving in this way all of a sudden? Or where is this coming from?
Yeah.
Why do I try to make my point so strongly this time? Huh? Interesting. So the last one is projective identification. And what this is that I like the example of Robin and Joan Showhead. They wrote to make this clear. They wrote, when a baby cries, it is almost impossible not to look at it. When a baby cries, it is almost impossible not to look at it. The baby will make us feel their need, and we will then act. The baby will make us feel their need, and we will act. There is no, we can't escape. There is no escape. Now, in a way, the belief is that this is an innate biological survival technique that we as humans have. As we grow older, of course, we can express ourselves in words, and that's what we do. But this ability or this pattern of being able to make others feel how we feel or feel our fear always remains with us. So whilst in the coaching conversation, certain things are being said verbally, but maybe the feeling is different. That's why they say the biggest bully often turns out to be the largest coward. What they are trying to do is to project their fear on us by coming across as forceful. Another example, and maybe you came across this as well. I noticed this from my own experience. Sometimes, maybe I have an experience where, as a group, we were set out to have a last meeting where we would say goodbye to each other and probably never see each other again. And what I noticed, for me, it had no meaning at that time, but I just noticed it. What I noticed was that 3 people didn't turn up. Later on, I read about these kind of phenomena. There are people who try to leave before they are left. So people do this on purpose. They don't like to say goodbye. They don't like to be left because of earlier experiences or whatever. So projective identification is a psychological defense mechanism in which individual unconsciously projects their own thoughts and emotions onto another person. The other person often enacts those projected aspects. And in coaching, for example, we may feel intimidated, and maybe we share this experience, being intimidated by an overly confident coachee. And when you talk to them a little more, then that confidence is not really based on anything. They are trying to camouflage maybe their fears or their nervousness to come and sit in the room with you. But it may also inhibit our ability to intervene. So when a coachee is overly confident, it may also be inhibiting us. Working with this kind of pattern is first of all start with cultivating our own awareness in recognizing these kind of patterns. And I think that also in terms of how often does this appear, again, I think that a parallel process is much more often evident than this one. But if you pay attention to your own emotional responses during the coaching conversation, these sort of feelings may appear, and you may alert yourself of what is happening. Reflect on it. Take a step back and be gentle, non-judgmental, and ask questions. Ask an open question like, I notice you mentioned a lot of self-doubt. Can you tell me more about it? And maintain barriers. What I said about the overly confident coachee, for example, sometimes projective identification can blur our professional boundaries. We may make steps that we should not take. Therefore, it is crucial to maintain our role as coach and to be clear and not to get entangled into these kind of client projections. Before opening the floor for some discussion or thinking about this, I'd like to share this slide, and maybe also come back to Mr. Agriwal's remark. What this slide is from Skills in Gestalt, is a book by Joyce and Charlotte Sales. And what it shows is on the right side, or the left side, sorry, is reducing the influence of past relational patterns. And on the bottom, you see different sort of relations. I don't know whether this is a common terminology in India, but we have what we call an I-it relationship, and at one side of the spectrum, and on the other side of the spectrum is an I-thou relationship. The I-it relationship is the type of relationship that you have with the waiter in a bar. You know, this is a person that is serving you something. This person, you see this person, you experience this person as someone who is fulfilling your requirements, your need. It is a transactional relationship. There is no intention to have a coaching conversation with the bartender. That would be very strange. Yeah, so this is in a way a rigid relationship. I-thou, on the other spectrum, is a relational, deeper relational relationship, a coaching relation, a relation that is based on mutual respect, on safety, on creating an equality that is open to discuss whatever will be brought to the table. So it's fluid and creative relating. So when we look at these patterns, you can see that from the IT to the I-thou way of relating, the influence of these patterns is reduced. And I think that was also what the previous speaker was saying. You know, we could have an open conversation about this, and the minute you have an open and honest conversation about these sort of patterns, the impact of it also diminishes. Okay?
Sure.
Now, this was the last one, so I'd like to, Debbie, open the conversation. Or share your thoughts or reflections, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Johan, for this. And let me open it to all the participants to ask questions, talk about. You wanted to get back to go back to Professor Agarwal's remarks, right?
Well, I was
No, yeah, sure. Devi, if I can make a point.
Yeah, please.
No, listening to this presentation, which was very interesting, I think the Professor Johan has reminded us that in every coaching interaction, there are two individuals. They come with their all past learning, past conditioning, anxieties, aspirations. So we have got to be aware as a coach. And if we can define reasonably early in the relationship the agenda for coaching, then possibly we can reduce the impact of these factors which are present there. So then as a coach, once we know this is the agenda for the coaching, then possibly we will not be distracted by our own personality or the personality of the other person. But I think the point is very well taken that there are two individuals, and those individuals come with a lot of their learning, anxieties, past experiences, and they might influence the whole process which is going on in the given setting. But once we have defined the agenda for coaching, I think as a coach, we should be in command of the situation and see that a lot of our effort is being spent working on the coaching agenda.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Thank
Yeah.
you, Professor Agarwal.
Yeah, thank
Johan,
you.
any comments you have on this?
Oh, I agree to that statement completely. Let me see. I think the only message I'd like to bring is to perhaps refresh our thinking a bit about these sort of patterns. They are around, and our awareness is helpful in the coaching conversation. And I agree that the better you know what it is that you want to achieve, the less influence or the less impact these sort of patterns will have. But many of these things are also, let's say, not always as conscious. We are not always as conscious about these sort of things playing a role whilst we are doing our best to achieve the results we would like to bring. So that's why it's important to, be aware of these sort of phenomena in the background, and then we can name them and perhaps put them aside and carry on.
Yeah. So Mahesh is asking, how does the IT or its relate? No, or its relate? Does it help identify if someone is ready for coaching?
Yeah, I'm just trying to relate this slide. How do we correlate this to the coaching world that we are in?
Okay.
Does it help in identifying, is this the right client, or are they ready for the coaching? Is that the way we should look at it, or a different lens to it?
Slightly different lens, I think, Mahesh. So in coaching, of course, there are different ways to approach the coaching, but it is generally felt that whenever there is, let's say, a somewhat deeper, respectful relationship between us and the coach, us as the coach and the coachee, it generally turns out to be more helpful. And this is the right side of the spectrum. That is a relationship where, let's say, there is equality, there is interest, there is respect, there is, let's say, an intention to create something together. And in the I-thou relationship, it's much more transactional. If you bring your car or motorcycle to the garage. You want this individual that is supposed to help you to do whatever you think is necessary to be able to drive your car again. That is a totally different relationship as for example, a coaching relationship. That of course there is also it's also respectful if it's correct, but there is no deep interest in the individual. There is a deep interest in solving your problem.
Mm.
So many managers, I think, in the corporate world, I need to be a bit careful to make this statement, but many managers respond to their subordinates much more from an I-it relational perspective than from an I-thou relational perspective. And that's where it becomes, let's say, a kind of transaction between people, which is not always as helpful. For example, if you work in that sort of relation, don't expect that an employee will step forward and say, "Hey, I noticed this and that is going wrong." No, I must be asked to say what I think. So they wait. Is that helpful? Does it?
Yep, certainly. I think I relate this to the empathy for the client and the alignment to together create a delightful outcome for the client.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Empathy
there are
is a good word. Yeah.
Thanks, Mahesh. There are two quick questions. One is Vidhu. My question is, how to increase or maintain high level of awareness in coaching conversations? Any tips?
Can I see the question?
Yeah, here in the chat box. How to increase or maintain high level of awareness
in coaching conversation? Any tips? My tip is to how can I put this? Well, to be open and notice what is happening to you as the coaching conversation progresses. So what do I feel? What do I notice? How am I in this conversation? Because very often what you feel is something that other people also feel. And when you feel that there is something that is not normal, or that is, something that makes you angry or makes you feel angry, or something that is out of the normal, be aware. And then you can ask non-judgmental, ask an open question and say, I noticed that I'm feeling a bit angry. Could it be that this is related to what we are just discussing in this conversation, or could it be that it is relating to the relationship that you have with your boss? One of my professors, when we were discussing someone that was overconfident, told me that in the coaching conversation, he was stating to that individual, I noticed that, as you are sitting there and telling me these things, I feel as if I'm becoming a little bit afraid of you. Can it be that you have heard that in other conversations as well? And he told me that really changed the conversation, because the person became aware that, this is happening more often.
Mm. So, Johan, it's 9 o'clock. There is one question. There is another coach friend of ours.
Okay.
As all these processes are unconscious, in your experience, can a coach over a period of time develop an intuitive subconscious capability to identify and respond to the situations instead of consciously doing it?
Yeah, my answer to this is fully yes. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. As we grow our own awareness of these kind of patterns, we can relate to it, even though it is unconscious, and we can see things happening as we know where to look.
Thank you, Johan. And there are a lot of appreciative messages which has come in the window.
Thank you. Thank you to
sorry,
the
Mahesh,
Regal
we'll have
team.
to close.
Thank you to
Mahesh
you.
has one more question.
Uh-huh.
But I think we'll close in the interest of time. Johan is a Dutch man, so he is already 2 minutes late for his next work. So, Johan, thank you so much for agreeing and being here. I just remember while you sharing your experiences, I was just remembering the Theory U by Otasama. I just what are you listening to, and where are you listening from? Yeah, that's what resonated with me. So
Yeah.
as coaches,
Yeah.
I think we need to first see the reflection of what's happening within us, right? Where it is coming from, and where I'm listening to, and where I'm listening from is very important.
Sure.
So thank you again, and for all this. Subhash, any last closing comments for you? Over to you.
Thank you, Devi. Thank you for hosting, and John, thank you for joining and sharing all the
You're
wisdom.
welcome. Thank you.
We hope to
Thank
see you
for the
soon.
opportunity.
Hope to see you back sometime in the future. Take care. Thank you. Good night.
With
And
pleasure.
all the participants, thank you. Thank you for attending this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Good
you
night.
all.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Bye. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Professor Agrawal. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.